Hi. It's been a minute since we last spoke about The Bear, but since The Bear just won a ton of Golden Globes and Emmys, I thought I would just get right back into it and totally ripped off Better Call Saul. Also, with this small dive series, I was giving them a rating at the end, even though I wasn't talking about like the quality of the show or anything like that. So instead of doing like a review format where I give a number at the end, I'm just gonna talk about what I liked about the shows. Okay, bye, sorry. Last time I talked a lot about how the show's tone is, and it does persist throughout both seasons, but today I want to talk about a lot about the editing and how the scenes are actually shot. One thing I've noticed while watching season 2 is the show's huge reliance on extreme close-ups. Have you ever been watching The Bear and it's just 5 minutes of this? A perfect example of the scene is that fucking Hulu ad I keep seeing, which is driving me fucking crazy. Carmy is talking to an old crush in a very intimate and close scene. They are lying against the glass and talking to one another about the past. The characters are very close to each other, and so are we. It's almost as if we're seeing what the characters are seeing. The close-up of Carmy makes him uncomfortable, just like the personal questions that follow it. How close we are to Carmy almost feels invasive for a person who hates getting personal. And they use the same effect for when Carmy is talking in his group therapy session. The camera slowly gets closer to Carmy and eventually ends up here. These questions plus the close-up really makes us understand what Carmy is feeling and trying to put us in his shoes. And with these close-ups, it's important to have someone who can portray all these emotions, like a good actor, because when you get really close up to a person's face, you can really pick up the nuances of their performance. So I'm really glad they got the guy from the Calvin Klein ad. This is not the only time the show does this. They also do it when Carmy talks to his mom. It's the same idea, but just another example of it. What I love about this episode is the constant whip pans between the characters. It's almost as if we're in the room darting between the conversations, hearing it firsthand. The camera once again acts like our eyes trying to follow the conversations throughout the craziness. Also, Bob Odenkirk in this episode is fucking so good for no reason. There's another beautiful scene in that episode where Carmy is talking to his brother. And the way that the camera is framed, it's almost as if Carmy and his brother are trapped in this box. The camera is framed almost like it's boxing Carmy and his brother in, almost forcing them to talk to one another. And it's also fully nailing down this idea that this is an incredibly personal conversation. Another great scene that uses good camera work is when Lee and Michael get into a scuffle at the dinner table. Lee is laying into Michael, telling him that he's nothing, and Michael is reacting. And with the close-up of Bob Odenkirk, you can really tell of the emotion he's bringing into the scene and how he really feels about Michael. And on the flip side, Michael seems like he's actually getting hurt by what Lee is saying, but is putting up a tough exterior. And we get all of this just by the actor's eyes in the close-ups. The scene is so much more impactful between the close-ups of the characters. It would not have been the same if it was a wide shot per se. Wouldn't be able to read the actors' nuances in their performances if it wasn't. In the final episode, the opposite effect is used. When Carmy and Richie are having this intense argument, the camera is placed in an impossible spot between the door that separates them. The barrier not only separates them physically, but also encapsulates the barrier emotionally between them. And finally, we have what basically the supermarket scene foreshadowed. The camera is placed almost in the exact same position as before, but now at the walk-in. Instead of Claire looking at Carmy in his eyes, she is now emotionally and physically barricaded from him and has nowhere to look at. We have this intense close-up that we've gotten so used to when watching Carmy and Claire talk, and suddenly, when they break up, the camera slowly pans out.